Could we have a roll call, please?
Senator Anderson, I said absent. Senator Anderson. Senator Furphy. Senator McEwen.
Here.
Vice Chairman Pappas.
Here,
Chairman Landon.
excused. Okay, so the first bill for our consideration tonight is House Bill 144, electric vehicle fee updates. And Representative Brown, would you please take it
Certainly.
over?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. My goal is to get you all out of here before the chairman can get down here. How's that sound?
That's great.
Mr. Chairman, I bring you House Bill 144, and this is a good little bill. It's a very simple bill. What we did is 2 years ago, we upped the electric vehicle fee for cars driving on our roads to $200. Those vehicles that don't pay any fuel taxes, we passed a fee to say, hey, if you're going to use our roads, you're going to pay to use our roads. And we had some unintended consequences that have arisen since that. And basically what we've had is we've had a couple of people with some electric motorcycles and electric golf carts that license their vehicles that are paying that $200. And frankly, what we have is the electric golf cart that I'm referencing is actually registered to a gentleman who resides in Arizona, has a Rock Springs address, and licenses that golf cart here because it's a pride point for him to have a license plate from Wyoming. But when he went to license it this past year, the treasurer charged him a $200 fee plus the registration fee. So it was a whoops, didn't mean to do that when we passed that last bill. All this bill is doing, Mr. Chairman, is removing and exempting motorcycles, electric motorcycles, and golf carts as they are defined in the statutes listed on page 2, 31101A15E and 31101A15M. And Mr. Chairman, that is literally the bill.
Thank you, Representative Brown. Yes, I think we've all had some of those oops in our bills. I had one this year as well.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that committee, any questions for the good representative?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Anderson.
I didn't look up that 31101, but a motorcycle defined in there as an electric motorcycle?
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Brown.
Senator Anderson, that it is, and we do have that in there. It also includes, and one thing that we needed to make sure on as well is electric bicycles. Electric bicycles fall underneath that motorcycle category as well, and we wanted to make sure that they did not do that. So there was due diligence done on this bill.
Okay.
Thank you.
Further questions? Okay, I do believe before we go to any public comment here in the gallery, we do have the our white out folks that are in the waiting room. Danielle, would you let them in? Director, welcome.
Well, a good evening, Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, Luke Reiner, Director of WYDOT. Vice Chairman, we're fine with this bill as written and would really have no further comments, but would stand for any questions if you have some.
Okay, well, thank you, Director. Any questions for the Director?
Nope.
Okay. Hearing none, do we have any questions from anyone out in the gallery? No, great. So then we'll close public comment. Committee, what's your pleasure?
Second.
Okay, been moved by Anderson, seconded by everybody else. We'll put McEwen. I don't think we have to go through this page by page. Is there any amendments first? Okay, hearing none. Kim, could we have the roll call, please?
Roll call on House Bill 144. Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Furphy.
Aye.
Senator McEwen.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Pappas.
Aye. And
And Chairman Landon excused.
can we just leave that open for him when he gets down?
Oh,
here?
sure.
Yeah, let's leave it open. Okay.
Really pressing out and get this done before we come back.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We've dispensed of that one. Now we're off to House Bill 119, antique motor vehicles. You have the
Mr.
floor.
Mr. Vice Chairman, thank you. This one will be a little bit longer, but not too much. And I'm gonna try to, oh, man. I was trying to get done before you got done up in appropriations.
Senator Landon, we left that last vote open for you. Okay.
You just go ahead, Mr. Vice Chairman, you got this.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Vice Chairman, I think the easiest way to do this bill is give a brief introduction, and then I'll walk you through the bill page by page. There's quite a few things that change, but ultimately this is a fairly simple bill. This bill came out of discussions from a former representative and I about 4 years ago on the Transportation Committee, Representative Bunky Laux. He and I had a discussion over antique motor vehicles, and there was some discussion about how in the world we limit how antique motor vehicles, they pay a one-time fee, then they can drive the vehicles. The policing and the enforcement of it's very difficult. There's a lot of odds and ends that go into those $10 plates. However, what we noticed throughout the process was those odds and ends were never really being followed through on. And so this was an attempt that I brought forward to the Joint Transportation Committee, brought this forward as an opportunity. And frankly, I didn't really have a dog in the fight other than I think that this bill has some merit. And this bill has been morphed and changed and molded into what you see here today. And Mr. Chairman, that's what I'll go through with you here. Nothing really going on page 1. I will flip you over into the next portion here. Now I've got an extra page. I have notes. There we go. Page 2 is where we start seeing some of the changes. And Mr. Chairman, I'm going to try to go over this to where I can give you the differences of the engrossed copy versus the introduced as well, and just let you know what the House did. There was 2 slight amendments in the House. The first one was what you see on line 12. The line strike of 25 years was the main purpose of this bill, as originally drafted, was really, do we need a 1995 vehicle capable of being licensed as a Pioneer plate vehicle? And that was kind of the antithesis of this argument or this discussion, was we really meant Pioneer vehicles to be older vehicles. And so as this bill came out, Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question on that 50 years you've got on page 2, line 12, and then on page 7, line 6, you've got 40 years.
Mr. Chairman, I have some amendments that I've caught since this bill has been engrossed that we have some conforming amendments to make. in the
Oh,
future.
okay,
So,
okay.
Good catch.
Thank you.
And it actually looks like LSO has caught them as well. So, Mr. Chairman, what you'll see here is a change from the introduced version to the engrossed version. We went from 40 years to 50 years, and that's why you still see 40 in the back of the bill. This was just a change that was brought on the committee of the whole. And really, again, no major discussion, just what is being classified as a classic vehicle, and the body in the House felt as if 50 years back really lends itself to being, basically one full generation back in vehicles. So this also eliminates the 1995s from being licensed. Moving over to page 2, or moving to page 3, I'm sorry. Line 18 is the first line that you will see that actually introduces a grandfather clause. And I'll get more into that grandfather clause on the very last page, but that's the first line that you'll see where it says issued on or after July 1st. And there's a reason why we say on or after, and that is that grandfather clause. Mr. Chairman, moving on to page 4 is really just conforming language with vehicle licensing. It really doesn't go into much anything else in here, except on the last line on line 23, we start talking about annual validation stickers. And I will get into that, I believe, in 2 pages where the fees are actually being adjusted on page 6, but that's where you start seeing the first adjustment to current statute. And then flipping over to page 5, that annual sticker, this was a change from the House as well. This was brought forward as a memento to a former representative who had to have a bucking horse and rider emblem on just about everything. I felt that this bucking horse and rider should be on the annual validation sticker as well. So that is a change from the House amendment. Moving down to page 5, still line 10, you see the conforming language here that was added in as well. This was a committee amendment on the 60 days striking 10 days. That's just keeping in line with our current statute is how vehicles are titled and licensed right now. Everything else is a 60-day window. And so this was just conforming language to move any antique vehicle to that same 60-day window. Going down to lines 16 through 19 is where we explicitly line out. And this has been some discussion that I've had with LSO as well as the department, and they may weigh in on this as to whether or not liability insurance was technically required for antique vehicles driving in these Pioneer plates. We could not find that in statute. And so this was a recommendation given by LSO that we explicitly outline this. And the reason being is there have been a couple instances where vehicles that we're driving around like this, classical vehicles can be insured by a larger policy, and they can actually be carrying either underneath a homeowner's policy or their own individual policy and be insured for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but not carry a liability insurance if they are at fault for somebody else. So this is just requiring that this vehicle actually carry liability insurance, just like any other vehicle on our road. You'll see on line 21, we have just the owner's signature. An electronic signature is where we would be able to have no real issues with taking electronic signatures as opposed to having anything digital or non-digitally signed, which we've tried to fix that in the past couple of years. This was just conforming language. Moving over to page 6. This is where on lines 4 and 5, you see the shall be renewed annually. And then moving down onto lines 18, 20, and 22 is where you see the fee changes. This is a complete mold of the previous Joint Transportation Committee plus the House Transportation Committee plus the House as a whole having their hands on this. And what we've done, Mr. Chairman, is we've taken the initial license plates from $10 as a one-time fee, moving that to a $50 fee, a transfer of license plate fees from $2 to $10, and then an annual validation sticker of $50 a year. And Mr. Chairman, I will stop there for just a second. And what I will say about this is the discussion that occurred throughout the interim and through the committee of the committee version of this is the people who are licensing these vehicles in a general concept. These are not, low-end vehicles, or they're not anything along those lines. These are higher-end vehicles. And so the discussion was that if you can afford a vehicle of this level, this caliber, $50 a year, less than $5 a month is worth being able to put that in towards our roads and the usage of our roads. The one-time $10 validation it was not a fair statement. And that's what the previous Joint Transportation Committee brought this in. As I brought this bill forward, there was originally no change in those fees. But as the committee worked this through, they felt it, prevalent, we should have an annual validation sticker just like everything else. And so you'll see that continued there. We move over to page 7, Mr. Chairman, and you will see the conforming language that we do need to have updated, which would be on line 6, strike 40 and insert 50. And then also I've recognized that on page 7, line 10 and line 16, we still have 25, the original language that was in there as a 25-year-old vehicle. We do need to strike that and put in 50 is there as well. But what section 2 is, Mr. Chairman, I promised that I would come back to the grandfather clause. And that's what section 2 is if you already have a Pioneer license plate and you do not transfer it and you are currently licensed, you will not be required to go get an annual validation sticker. There is no requirement if you are currently underneath this statute. However, anything purchased on or after July 1st of 2021 would then require that initial $50 as well as $50 annually. Any vehicle that is currently licensed would not need that. And that is the full grandfather clause on page 7, Mr. Chairman. And then moving over to page 8, which is section 3, very simple, is that this bill becomes effective July 1st. Mr. Chairman, I will stand for any questions.
I have one question. The $50 initial and then $50 annual. Typically, you see an initial that's higher than the annual. Was that discussed?
Mr. Chairman, I think we probably discussed it somewhere in the 3 or 4 meetings that this bill had been hashed through. It never really is discussed in depth. But again, I will tell you, to be completely honest with you, I don't have a dog in the fight as to whether or not you increase that or decrease that. This is at the committee's pleasure.
Okay, Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. So Representative, I'm trying to track section 2. And I'm just a little bit slow on the bottom of the page when we reference 25-year-old vehicles. Can you explain 16 through 21 for me one more time, just so I got it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So 16 through 20 is still the grandfather clause. What you're looking at there is I would be asking for the conforming amendment to move that to 50 years and making that to where it's a 50-year or model year of 1979 or earlier. I kind of decided, do we really want to put that in there right now? And the answer is we probably should, just because this is going to go into statute and we're probably not going to be looking at updating the statute for quite some time. So keeping the dates and everything in there. What 16 through 21 does is says you are grandfathered in. However, that grandfather clause ends if you transfer title ownership. So if title ownership is transferred, then you are subject to the $50 one-time fee up front and the $50 annual validation sticker.
Representative, I had changed that to 50, and then I thought, well, wait a minute, maybe that's grandfathering in some of these cars that aren't 50 years old. And up to this point, we've told them it's 25 years old. And so thank you for clarifying that.
Absolutely, Mr.
Appreciate
Chairman.
Okay, oh, yes. Go ahead, Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question, asking for a friend. So if somebody were to say, go register a couple of these vehicles in April, would they fall under the old provisions?
Mr. Chairman, Senator McEwen, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
You can tell your friend.
Yeah.
Gives you some ideas. Tell your friend about April.
His to-do list just grew.
So hypothetical here in section 2 again, we're talking about a vehicle that's at least 25 years old, but not of a model year of 1979 or earlier. So let's pick a car that's 1970. 71, that'd be 50 years from now, right? But it's not earlier. I mean, it's not. I mean, it is earlier. So how does that work?
Mr. Chairman, I do believe we would probably need to have a little bit of some updated language due to the fact that the 50-year mark was changed back in section 1 on the bill.
Yes,
Because you're
there.
you're
Yeah,
you're
it's
right.
That's
The
why I'm stuck on it too.
the original language that came out of committee and Joint Transportation Committee was 40. And so that language was saying, hey, look, if you are less than 40 years or older than 40 years, but you're not quite a 1979. And keep in mind, the original 25 was what had been contemplated or currently is in statute. And why LSO kept that, I'm not completely sure. That just a drafting error. And I would think that I would be able to work with LSO to try to clean that language up and probably either it's a standing committee amendment to have it, generally formed, or if you guys would like me to work on LSO and bring a committee of the whole amendment for one of you guys to carry, I could do that as well, assuming it passes.
Well, if this indeed is going to go into effect July 1st, 2021, and we just back off 50 years,
I think so, Mr. Chairman.
then that's 1971.
Right.
So we could probably amend 79 to just say 71 and
Absolutely.
be done with it.
Mr. Chairman, this, I don't know what it is. I guess it's a standing committee amendment that they have here. Actually changes that 79 to 69.
Oh,
In two places.
I didn't see that.
On line 10 and on line 17, it changes it to
Oh, that makes-
69.
makes
So I think
sense.
that
Thank you.
solves the problem.
Okay,
Mr.
great.
Chairman, I think that's, again, this goes back to the discussion as I caught this after it came out of the House. The engrossed copy was clearly not, that the House did not catch all that. So I'm glad to know that LSO is on top of it like they always are.
Yeah,
So
thank you. I didn't look at that amendment fully. Thank you. I
Yep.
appreciate it, Senator Anderson. Okay, any further questions? Senator McEwen?
Mr. Chairman, I think that 1969 needs to be changed to 71. So I would propose that we take the years out of it and just leave it at 50 years because every year it's going to change. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Frankly.
You know, I think the
that-
senator might have hit on
I
something.
think you're
Mr.
right.
Vice
We
Chairman.
dropped the model year completely.
Yeah,
I
Mr.
think
Chairman.
we've talked about that before.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good point.
I think at this point, I think the standing date that was in there, Mr. Chairman, was basically because of the 25 year that was originally contemplated.
Yeah.
Us not hitting that mark, but it being older than 1979. So I think Senator McCune is spot
Senator
on.
McCune, hold that thought till we get to amendments and we'll entertain it. Okay. All right. Any further questions? Senator Furphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me ask, because there seems, I'm getting emails on this and I think there's some confusion. But based on our current regulation, we prohibit the use of daily drivers using these antique vehicles. Is that still correct?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Furphy, that is correct. And so I guess I can go into a little bit more detail to answer that particular question in a little bit more detail for you and why this was originally brought up. The policing that I mentioned earlier about vehicles being driven with the Pioneer plates, these Pioneer plated vehicles, and driving them more regularly than anticipated is what has happened. In some of the larger cities especially, we have police officers that really, they've stopped and all they have to do is say, well, I was on my way back from a car show. And the police officer is then kind of at the point of saying, okay. So really what this bill does, in all honesty, is it gives the opportunity to plate with the Pioneer plate, pay $50 a year, call it good. But it was brought up by the former Senator or former Representative Stan Blake that a lot of these older vehicles have an MSRP that is far below what today's vehicles are, and they could technically license them with a standard license plate for far underneath $50. And if that's the case, they can certainly still do that. However, they don't get that Pioneer plate. So this is kind of that picking and choosing battle of, do I want a vehicle that has that Pioneer plate and has that prestige of being able to do that, but I'm restricted on my driving use? Or do I want to put a regular license plate on this vehicle that I can drive any day, every day, all day? And that's really kind of where the committee settled on this, because there was certainly discussion on that of, these are really restricted to certain times of parades and driving to car shows, coming back from car shows. And speaking with a few law officers here, spoke with the sheriff and a highway patrolman here, and they both kind of said the same thing. We see an increase, of course, during the summertime that we see these cars come out with the black plates. And every single time, we have a discussion with one of them, no matter where we stop them or what's going on, it's always, I'm coming back from a car show. And so I don't know how many car shows there are. I certainly am a classic car enthusiast myself. I don't own one. I wish I could, but that's really where this discussion came from, Mr. Chairman.
And it's my understanding too, that taking it out for an occasional drive is still all right as well. It's just not using it for a daily use, going to work and back.
And Mr. Chairman, I actually had a constituent of mine come to me and talk to me about this bill in particular. And he says, it's interesting that you're bringing this forward. About 5 years ago, I actually got rid of my Pioneer plate because I enjoyed driving my classic car so much during the summer that I wanted to be able to drive it. And so he went and paid, I think he said $36 is his annual premium to license his vehicle. So it really doesn't do that. What this does is say, hey, if you're going to drive a Pioneer plate or a Pioneer vehicle and you want to have that, it's still going to cost you more than the one-time $10 fee.
So to me, it begs the question then, if we're going to charge an annual fee now, registration, then why are we limiting them from driving?
Mr. Chairman, that's a great question and one that was debated a little bit, not much, but certainly at the prerogative of the committee. I think it's a little outside of the scope of this particular bill, but I have no problems with that. If that would be an entertained motion, I'm certainly okay with that.
Certainly if I was someone who owned an antique car and I'm going to be now charged registration every year, I'd want to be able to drive my car where I wanted to go drive.
Certainly.
Seems logical to me. Okay, any further questions of the representative? Okay, I'd like to, I know our White Dot folks are in the And I think they just got the cameras off. So if anyone wants to, Director, do you want to address this bill?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I'll start and then I'd like to toss it to Mr. Rossetti. But really the general approach from us in the department is we're fine with everything that's in this bill. I know there's an issue of stickers, and so I'd like to kick that over to Mr. Rossetti to talk over those details. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Rossetti, you have the floor.
Mr. Vice Chairman, Taylor Rossetti, Support Services Administrator here for YDOT. And as the director mentioned, I do just want to bring to attention the committee the requirement to put the bucking horse on the validation stickers. If you guys recall, I mean, you guys are all familiar with the license plate and the validation sticker that you have on your vehicle now. I'll remind you that those stickers are about 1 inch by 1.5 inch. In order to put that bucking horse on there, I don't know what the expectation is for what that's going to look like, but in practical purposes, to make those things serve the purpose that they should, that bucking horse will get reduced to about 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. I believe it is achievable on our printing device, but I do just warn you that it's going to come out very, very small. And I don't know that it then has the visual effect that the bringer of the amendment may have been going for. But I just wanted to bring that to the committee's attention before we moved on with the bill.
Okay, thank you. Before I entertain questions, anything else with the bill, Mr. Rossetti? Was it just that point?
Just that, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you.
Okay, any questions?
Yes,
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, how many Pioneer licenses are we talking about? What, do you have a number on total?
Mr. Vice Chairman and Senator Anderson, it's an interesting question. So right now, as they sit, these things are not renewed annually, right? So what I can tell you is, as of the drafting of this bill, there had been 5,590 of them issued. How many of those plates are active? We can't really tell you, because again, they pay the fee one time and never come back. What we can tell you is our fiscal note, is the way it is set up, is basically a 3-year average. And the last 3 years, we're averaging about 250 of these vehicles a year.
Okay,
Thank you.
questions for committee? Senator Landon.
Mr. Vice Chairman, thank you. Mr. Rossetti, I'm struggling to find, if we wanted to allow these automobiles to be driven, as has been discussed here tonight, I'm not finding where that is. Is it outside this bill that we would find that?
Mr. Chairman, through the Vice Chairman, I suppose. You guys actually do have the appropriate section open. I think whether or not it's outside the purview of the bill, I would leave to LSO. What I'll do is I would point the committee to page 5, line 4. And where that language resides in the actual statute would be right underneath line 15. So in 31.2.223B, Romanet I, or double I, is actually where the limitation on use would be. So you have the appropriate section of statute open. It would be probably a question for your LSO attorney as to whether or not that would be allowable to bring into the bill.
We could do that on the cow.
Reach on the title.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Committee, I suggest maybe we don't deal with that tonight, obviously, but we certainly could speak with LSO and bring a committee of the whole amendment to maybe change that if we wish.
Well, Mr. Vice Chairman, I like your idea to explore that, because honestly, if somebody's willing to pay above what they might on a regular license plate, just to have the Pioneer plate, why not let them drive it?
Well, what I anticipate will happen is people will be dropping their Pioneer plates because they don't want to pay the $50 a year, and they'll put a regular plate on and then they'll start driving the car. So if we're going to go if they're gonna do that, maybe they would buy the plate for $50 and drive their car, if we allow it.
There you go.
Senator,
Oh, don't put me there, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Brown.
Mr. Chairman, I think this, number one, I do think it fits within the title of the bill. If you look at the actual title, the broadest clause that we use is the first clause, and that is relating to motor vehicles. I think it's well within it. As Mr. Rossetti pointed out, you're even opening up the exact section of statute. It's 2 points above it. So I certainly think it's within the purview. I think in essence, what this bill does, the way you guys are looking at this, and I actually tend to agree with this, is this ends up making this plate a prestige plate. Similar in nature to our Air Force plate or firefighter plates or whatever. This in essence makes these a prestige plate. And I actually tend to agree with you that if we're going to charge somebody above what a normal license plate would cost, absolutely we should be letting them drive. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, I'll just go back to online to see if there's any further questions or comments from director or anyone from YDOT.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I think we're good at this point. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'd like to open up from anybody out in our gallery that would like to speak. Please, sir, come forward. And if you'll sit down and push the little button so that your microphone will turn green.
It's green.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, my name is Bob Munger. I'm the president of the Oak Spokes Antique Automobile Club here in Cheyenne. And the primary reason we object to this bill is the $50 that we would have to pay annually to register our cars. Right now, we don't have to pay any annual fee whatsoever, and we feel this is excessive and unnecessary. In checking with antique plate fees around the states, around Wyoming, I find that Colorado charges $15.49 a year. Nebraska is like Wyoming. They don't charge an annual fee. There's no annual fee. South Dakota is $10 annual fee. Montana is $10 annual fee. Idaho is $3 every 3 years. In other words, $1 per year. And Utah is $5 per year. This averages out to $7.25 a year for the surrounding states. We feel that $50 a year is too much, and like you've already expressed, why have an antique Pioneer plate, which we're proud to display on our vehicles, if it costs more than what a regular plate costs. So that's the primary reason we object. Of course, the Pioneer plate now restricts its use from being an everyday driver vehicle. And so we don't get the mileage on as other what you call upscale plates or specialty plates might get. If you have a disabled American veteran plate or a Wyoming plate, University of Wyoming plate or something like this, those are everyday driver plates. And they drive, with those plates every day. We're not allowed to do that with an antique vehicle that has a Pioneer plate. Now, I drive a Model A Ford as my antique vehicle and has a Pioneer plate. And I drive as much or more than anybody else in our club. And I drive less than 500 miles a year with that vehicle. So we don't use the roads like everyone else does. So we don't think it's appropriate to be paying for the roads that we don't use as everyone else does. So therefore, $50 we feel is inappropriate. I think that charging $50 a year would discourage the use of the Pioneer plates. Now, our thing is to encourage people to drive their antique vehicles. every year I put my vehicle in the Christmas parade and I put it in the Frontier Days parade. And when I drive in the parade, people cheer when our vehicles come by. They say, beautiful car. They say, honk your horn. It's an ooga ooga horn. They love to hear it. I hear that over and over again. Honk your horn. They go like this, you know. People love these old cars. Why should you discourage them from looking like old cars by overcharging? It doesn't make sense. So anyway, this bill apparently is being introduced because someone apparently is using their Pioneer plates as an everyday driver vehicle. Now that's been discussed up here, but that's already in the existing statutes. So that's an enforcement problem. It's not a legislative issue that needs to be legislated. So therefore, we oppose this bill.
Okay, well,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you for your testimony.
Uh,
Any questions, Mr. Munger? Questions, committee? Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward? Anybody? Going once, going twice? Okay, I'll close public testimony. So committee, what is your pleasure? Been moved by Senator Anderson, seconded by the chairman. Okay, let's, any general thoughts before we go through the bill?
Mr. Vice Chairman,
Senator
thank you.
Landon.
I appreciate the intent of the bill, and I greatly appreciate the president of the Antique Club coming up tonight and visiting with us. I thought he struck a chord with me, and I think we can make some adjustments. I like your idea of little 2I. We can amend in striking the language that prohibits those cars from being driven. And then I'll probably make a motion that we knock the fee down a little bit. And then we can always go back over and visit with our friends in the House. So that's just some overall comments, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Yes, Senator Anderson.
I have an amendment if you want one.
Okay, just general comments first.
Okay.
And I just wanted to share mine as well. And I think mine were kind of along the lines of Senator, our good chairman here. Frankly, I think from the get-go, I thought the $50 was not right.
Yeah.
I had questioned that. So I really do think we need to make a change there. But I also, even if we do drop that, I still think we ought to loosen up the regulation on their ability to drive it. Because I agree with Mr. Munger. I want to see these cars out there, okay? They're beautiful. Why have them locked up in people's garages? All right. We need to be able to do that. And by doing so, I think we can do that and reduce the yearly fee. So Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also wanted to add, I probably own a couple of these vehicles, as we figured out earlier. Nobody, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Munger, but I'm of the belief nobody's ever going to drive these thousands and thousands of miles. So even having a requirement's almost silly, because if you start looking at aftermarket insurance on some of this, they're going to control your mileage. It's called agreed upon value. And when you get an agreed upon value and you say, I'm going to drive it $10,000 or 10,000 miles a year, it's almost $1 a mile. So the whole thing's going to control itself. And I'd like to see the fee go back to where it was. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Senator Anderson.
Mr. Co-Chairman, I think if we lower the fees, we ought to leave II alone and just let it sit where it is. I mean, these guys are using their vehicles like they want to and should use them. And I don't think we ought to delve into II. I think we ought to worry about the annual fee we're talking about.
But II right now limits them.
Yeah.
My intent
not
is to
that
let
much.
them drive it more on the road. I think we ought to get into Romanet 3. Anyhow.
Okay.
Okay, Bill, okay, let's go ahead and work the bill. On page 1, probably nothing to amend there. So let's move on to page 2. Committee, anything?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator
I
Anderson.
would move that we strike on line 21, followed by the bucking horse and rider emblem and. It's been discussed that it's way too small to make it anything on that sticker.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I'm the chairman. Sorry, I'm not used to it. Senator Anderson, that's not the appropriate location.
Oh, it's
That's
not?
the actual emblem on the Pioneer plate.
Oh,
We
is
don't-
that right?
We don't want to take off the emblem.
Oh, I don't want to take it off the plate.
Yeah.
Where was it on the sticker?
It is at the bottom of page 4
Oh, okay,
and the
sorry.
top of page 5.
Sorry.
I'll let you make that amendment when we get
All
there.
right, yep.
Okay.
I want to leave it on this, on the license.
First anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right.
Do I have any amendments on page 2?
Only any legitimate ones.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to page 3. Anything there that you would like to see changed? Hearing none, let's move on to page 4. Page 4, here we go, Senator Anderson.
Oh,
I
really?
think you want to start striking the last 2 words of the page. And on. Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a motion?
Yes, I'll make that motion on that one. Yeah, yeah.
Wait, I'll second that.
Okay, so
So it starts with annual validation, strike that, and then strike the first 2 lines on page 5,
okay,
right?
that's correct.
Okay.
Kim, do you, is that, you understand that one? Okay. So-
Is there a second on that one? Oh, you second, okay.
Okay. Any discussion?
Mr. Vice Chairman, yeah,
Yeah.
I totally get, where our other chamber was. I mean, really. I know where it came from too, and I hate to take it out, but it just doesn't work. And so.
The
That's why I
issue,
seconded
the issue is the emblem's on the plate anyhow.
Yeah, yeah. With
Okay.
that guy, it didn't matter.
All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that amendment has been adopted. Okay, any other further changes on page 4? Okay, hearing none, let's go to page 5. Senator or Chairman Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I believe that I understood correctly that it would be Romanet 2I underneath paragraph B is where the limitation on usage resides in our statutes.
Do I? Okay, I thought it was
Romanet 2I, and I'm getting a head shake, yes.
Okay,
It can be conceptual though, and
Mr. Chairman.
maybe Kim can help us to double check with our legal staff. My intention of the motion would be to strike that language, which would then allow antique motor vehicle owners to drive their cars wherever and whenever.
like
It
a
sounds
regular-
like that's going to be governed anyway, so I would make that motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Second
I got a
for discussion.
I got a motion by Chairman Landon and a second by Senator Anderson.
And do we know what that II says? Oh,
Mr. Chairman, that's
could
what I
you-
was going to say. I can
could you
read
tell
it
us?
to you if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman,
Representative.
subsection B, Romanet 2 says specifically this, and what I would recommend is I can work with, your secretary to show her this, and LSL can simply bring it up and strike it. But the vehicle is owned and operated solely for the purposes of organized antique car club activities, parades, exhibitions, tours, and other related activities, and will not be used for general transportation. That's what you would be striking with B Romanet 2.
So we're still okay with that? You're okay with that?
I'm okay
Strike
with,
that all?
I'm okay with that. I'd like to see these cars on the road. If they're willing to put them on the road.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. How about you? Are we bringing you along with us?
I guess you are.
Okay,
Hey,
so that motion, and we'll get the exact language hammered out with LSO. Okay, committee, any more discussion on that?
question.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that has been adopted as well. Anything else under page 5? Okay, on to page 6. Okay, page 6, folks, we're dealing with the fees.
Yeah, okay. They ought to be the same.
I frankly, well, okay, give me your thoughts on fees before I give you mine.
Bill's got some thoughts.
Senator.
He's a
or,
fees guy.
Chairman Landon.
So,
He's a
Mr.
fee.
Vice Chairman, just based on testimony tonight, I think we're asking a lot more out of a lot of different spots in our statutes throughout this entire session. So while I understand that we don't want to pay anything more, I think it's okay that we update this statute a little bit. So maybe we'll ask our antique car owners. My thought would be, and we can talk about it. I thought maybe the initial plate, $20, the annual validation sticker, $20.
Second.
And Mr. Chairman, my thoughts were half of what the House wanted, $25 beginning, and then a third of the annual, $15. I'm good at 10 though,
He's at 20.
because the average, as testimony said, the average was $750. Yeah, so I'm good at $10.
Mr. Vice Chairman,
But
that we
I-
could certainly put it there. And then
I do,
what's going to happen is we're going to get to sit down with Representative Brown, and we're going to land that thing somewhere in the
Well,
middle.
I do believe I do believe the initial ought to be a little bit more than the annual. And so that's why a little discrepancy, I think, is logical.
You think?
I thought half was reasonable.
It's your
Well, our
motion,
motion-
it's your motion.
Our motion is 20 and 20.
Yeah, my
No,
motion.
no, I didn't take that motion yet.
I'm kind of liking the
I'm
motion
seconding.
more all the time. Mr. Vice Chairman, it just feels like, maybe 10's a little low.
Okay,
I don't know.
25 and 15.
All right,
Do I
so.
have 15, 15, 15? Do I have 15?
you know, So, yeah, I'll take that one.
I just want to throw one thing. out
Okay,
there.
Senator McEwen.
I'd like to see it go 20 and 10. And I just want to throw this out as a thought. I really don't see this as huge revenue either way.
No.
So if we went 20 and 10, we'd be helping our constituents out a lot. And we're certainly not going to break Wyoming's bank.
What do you think? Are we okay? You were the second, weren't you?
Yep.
Are you okay with 20 and 10?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I meant to say 20 and 10.
Okay,
And I make you say-
I heard a motion by Senator, by Chairman Landon and
Second,
Senator Anderson,
Yeah.
that it's $20 initial license plate fees. The transfer license plate fees will stay at 10,
Okay.
and the annual validation sticker will be $10. Any questions?
Question.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, fees are set. Any further changes on that page? Okay, go on to page 7.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I have a motion here on line 10. I'd say put a period at the end of old, 50 years old, and then strike but not of a model year of 79 or earlier.
Senator Anderson, what I was going to do, I was going to suggest that we just take the entire LSO amendment as
No,
one amendment at the end.
Problem with that is it doesn't do this.
It's got the date in it.
It's got the date in it.
Oh, I see what you were changing. I
We're
thought you
taking
were-
the date
you- I
out.
thought you were on line 6.
Yeah, we're just gonna take the.
No,
date
I'm on
out.
line
yeah.
10.
Go ahead, continue.
I'm on line 10, taking that out, period. And then it has to run through earlier and if. And a new sentence, as of July 1st, the owner has already registered the vehicle. I'm okay with the rest of that sentence. And then down on line 17, put a period after years old and mark out, but not of a model year of 79 or 69, whatever, or earlier. And mark out and leave that previously had license plate designating it as an antique.
No, Senator Anderson, I think the word "and" still needs to stay there.
Does
I
it?
think you're right.
Well,
And yes,
Yeah.
and
well,
needs to stay.
and would be the first word on that next sentence then.
No, it's a continuation
Just
sentence.
don't
So
No,
it-
I put a period at the end of
Take the
years
period
old.
out.
I put a period at the end of years old. Now, maybe we could take that period out.
yeah, that's,
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. I would not put a period at the end of years old. And the reason being is what that is that's the continuation of that grandfather clause.
Okay.
So I think Senator Pappas and Senator McEwen are right that if you continue that with is at least, and may I also offer, Mr. Chairman, striking 25 and inserting 50 for that conforming language for both of those. But it would read is at least 50 years old and that previously had license plates. That way it keeps that grandfather clause for the people that have those vehicles right now.
All right.
Unless it's a sentence.
I had that written down to put that to 52.
yeah, we will. So in both places, change the 25 to 50. Okay, so this is the way I understand your amendment, Senator Anderson. In line 10, we'll strike 25 and the numeral 25 and put in 50. Then strike but not of a model year of 1979.
Or earlier.
And on line 11 or earlier. No,
No, I think
we have
we
to leave
eliminate
and
the
if.
period
So-
and
so-
leave and in.
So that's the change. You
Yeah.
strike, you insert 25 years in place of, or 50 years in place of 25, strike, but not of a model year of 1979 or earlier. So the sentence will read,
Yep.
if as of July 1st, 2021, a vehicle is at least 50 years old, and if as of July 1st, 1921, the owner has already registered the vehicle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
and then the second part of that same amendment is pretty much the same changes back on 16 and 17. We strike 25 and 50 and replace it with, or excuse me, strike 25 and replace it with 50 years old. And then strike on line 17, but not of a model year of 1979 or earlier.
Yes.
Okay, does that, are
Mis-
everybody agreeable with that?
Mr. Chairman, I think that part of that is 50 years old too. Line 6, I think I meant to add that instead of 40 years old, 50 years old up there. I don't think we have any other amendments to change that.
We can do that. That was in the LSO amendment, but we can add it to this one. That's fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
line 6, we just change it to 50 years.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Vice Chairman, I would second the motion of
So-
Senator Anderson regarding page 7.
Okay. Any other changes? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then that takes us to the effective date. Now, there is a couple of changes still on the LSO amendment, and that's back on page 523. line 23. Before subsection, insert this and delete B of this section.
So move.
And, yeah, that's all that they had. Is every second, any questions on that change?
Why are they eliminating B of this section?
The owner signature or electronic signatures on the application certifies that the owner meets the criteria in, and it would now read of this section. Because we're already in section B.
Yeah, Senator, I think that.
It's just language cleanup that LSO wants.
Subparagraphs 4 and 5 are part of the subsection.
Yeah.
B, so I think that's all they're doing.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, okay. And then the final thing that LSO, well, we got rid of 79, so we're not
We
changing
got-
that to
yeah, we got
69.
that.
So yeah, there's nothing else. Okay, that's the bill. Any further changes? Any further questions? Okay, well, then I think we're ready for the vote. Do we have a roll call, please?
Roll call for House Bill 19 engrossed. Senator Anderson,
Aye.
Senator Furphy, Senator McEwen,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Pappas,
Aye.
and Chairman Landon.
Okay, that bill has passed, and probably Representative Landon, thank you. We'll probably be seeing you in a committee.
Mr. Chairman, you'll see me back here. I'm going to guess on
No.
Thursday. I have another bill that I just
No,
sent
I mean
over
on
to you
this.
guys. So yeah,
In
but
the
I
conference
apologize. I wasn't able to get it done before the good chairman made it down from appropriations.
We, Mr. Vice Chairman, appreciate the representative, and we'll pop up some corn and we'll come and see you on this one if it gets all the way through. So.
We'll just agree.
Okay, well, thank you.